Blessings, everybody. Welcome to the channel. I'm Dane, your host. I hope you're doing well wherever you may find yourselves. Today's video is a farewell to and a thank you to the band Uriah Heep, who will be going on their farewell tour in February 2025. February 19th is the first date. There are 7 dates in total. A very short farewell, a very short goodbye indeed. They are touring with April Wine and a band called Takedo, a band I'm not familiar with, if I'm pronouncing that right. And this tour is called the Magician's Farewell, which is, of course, very fitting. The first show is in Birmingham, and I guess you could say it's kind of sad there are only 7 shows, but I get it. At some point, you have to say enough is enough and, move on to better things or a new chapter, if you will. So before I dive into my thank you and goodbyes and all that, it's really not a goodbye because I have all the wonderful music I'm still going to listen to, of course. But it's been a wonderful run, with some ups and downs and that kind of thing, which is expected of a very long career. But I do want to first begin with a little bit of history of the band. So let's go ahead and get started. In 1965, we have the formation of a band called The Gods, with an S, which is a British band, not to be confused with the American The Gods with a Z. And this band is formed by Ken Hensley, and it included at one point Mick Taylor, who goes on, of course, to fame and fortune with the Rolling Stones. In addition, it also had, at one time in their membership, they had Greg Lake, who goes on to be in King Crimson and, of course, ELP. Bassist Paul Newton, who goes on to be in Uriah Heep. More on that later. Also, at one time, you had Lee Kerslake, who goes on to be part of Uriah Heep, as you know. And also, at one time, the Gods did John Glasscock, who goes on to be the drummer for Jethro Tull. Now, the Gods, for some reason, changed their name to Head Machine, and they put out an album in 1970, their third album, called Orgasm, and it's very proto-Uriah Heep, as is the Gods stuff to some degree. And then they changed their name again, so they go from the Gods to Head Machine to Tofat, and they released 2 albums, both in 1970, Tofat 1 and Tofat 2. And Hensley's only on the first album. So Hensley is invited by Paul Newton to join Spice in December of 1969. So it's approaching 1970. And of course, you Uriah Heep fans know that Spice contains, as members, David Byron, Mick Box, on drums, Alex Napier, and Colin Wood on keys. Then they go out and they do some live stuff, still as Spice, and then later on they change the name when they're touring to Uriah Heep. But, as you know, Spice turns into Uriah Heep, the name is eventually changed for good, official, and of course the rest is history. But, in 1969, 1970, thereabouts, the sound that they're looking for and trying to capture and maintain, late 60s, early 70s, is this progressive trend that is popular at the time, moving away and becoming less bluesy, more progressive. And there is of course some blues in the history of Uriah Heep, as you know. So 1970, a pivotal year. Depending on which source you have, some say that Hensley joins in 1969. Some say he joins in 1970. Regardless, he leaves Tofat. Again, the band is changed to Uriah Heep as far as their moniker is concerned. And then you get the wonderful manager-producer Jerry Braun comes on board and begins the ball rolling. Now, 1970, June, this comes out. Braun's Records. Again, that's the Jerry Braun assistance that you get. He starts this label. You have Byron, Box, Hensley, Newton on bass, and Ollie Olson on drums and percussion. So this is not, of course, the classic lineup. But as far as debut albums goes, this is one of my favorite debut albums of all time. This is the double CD version. And as you know, here in America, like with the Beatles and so many other bands that are across the pond, there are some different songs. Some are added, some are taken away, different tracks, that kind of thing, for whatever reason, marketing, you name it. Same thing with the follow-up, but we'll get to that in a couple minutes. So, again, 1970, one of the greatest debut albums of all time, I think. You get the wonderful progressive and heavy Gypsy, Walking in Your Shadow, Come Away Melinda, the cover there, Lucy Blues, Dream Air, Real Turned On, I'll Keep On Trying, and Wake Up, in parentheses, Set Your Sights. I'm not going to read the alternate tracks on the disc 2, but this is the British cover. This is David Byron's face himself in Cobwebs. The American version, I like better, a lot cooler, I think. The centipede or giant millipede here with a weird logo. And then you get the 2 discs and a booklet. Excuse me. So, we talk about the beginnings of proto-metal. It starts here, or partially begins here, because you also have Jimi Hendrix, you have Led Zeppelin, you have Deep Purple, you have Black Sabbath, right? All in 1970, making their mark on the music scene. And things are just really beginning, right? So, 1969, 1970 is really a pivotal year for hard rock, rock in general, proto-metal, and the beginnings of what we come to call classic metal. So, June 1970, wouldn't call this a masterpiece, but I think it's very close as far as debut albums go. Anyway, so 1970. Then 1971, sticking with one that have some blues, but also be very progressive, because of side 2 is on vinyl, one song, and that is the 17 or 18 minute track Salisbury, or as we say in America, Salisbury. Bird of Prey, The Park, Time to Live, Lady in Black, and High Priestess. And you have a CD2 here. And like the debut, this is the British cover, because in the Salisbury era, someone told me they have a military base, a military presence. That makes sense for the album cover. But I really love this skeleton or Lazarus or alien or mummified creature coming out of its trappings or its cloth. Really kind of creepy. I remember wanting to get this on vinyl when I'm a teen or preteen at Smith's record shop here in the suburbs, but I never pulled the trigger until I got it on CD years and years ago. Just one of those album covers you can't stop looking at because you're trying to figure out what on earth is going on. It even has, like, at the bottom, kind of makes you think of the Lincoln Memorial because of the way the knees, kind of a knee thing here. I'm not sure what that is. But anyway, 2 discs that come inside of the package, and these let's see, 2016 reissues with the extra bonus discs. These are hard to track down, and I got lucky and did that, I guess about a year ago. So Salisbury is January 1971. We have Keith Baker on drums now. So, again, still not the classic lineup, but you see things with respect to where the band is going. Much of the same that you have here, but the difference is that last track, Salisbury. Again, very progressive. If you like epic music, epic tracks, long tracks, in other words, you like progressive rock. You've not heard this. This may be something you want to investigate. You heapsters out there, you know how wonderful and massive this song is. It's unfortunately an underrated gem, in the sense that a lot of people who are Heep fans don't necessarily gravitate towards it because they stick to the shorter pieces, with the exception of Paradise the Spell and Magician's Birthday. But I put this right up there with the longer pieces. July Morning comes to mind, right? So again, we're moving towards that continuation of keeping, at least for a short while, long tracks on albums as they come out through the years. Then you get this. This is also 1971, but not January. This is September. And now you have a new drummer in Ian Clark. This is where they become an international live act, an international live wonder. They go on to tour with Kiss. They go on to tour with, I meant to say I think they tour with Kiss. They go on to tour with Rush as their headliner. And Mick Box loves to talk about the tour that they did with Rush. He enjoyed the band and what have you. So, 1971's Look at Yourself. Title track starts it. I Want to Be Free. July Morning, as I hinted at. Tears in My Eyes. Shadows of Grief. What Should Be Done. And Love Machine. If you listen to the Head Machine album, and then listen to this, you can see that Head Machine seems to be foreshadowing a little bit of what's going on in this album, because you have this slide guitar and some bluesy edginess to it, but you still have the progginess because you have Manfred Mann with his beautiful keys and synths and mini Moog stuff here on July Morning. You have some heavy stuff like Love Machine itself, but at the same time you have beautiful passages like, slower songs like What Should Be Done, and there's a majesty about this album, and of course, if I don't think I have it in here, no, I don't. If you had the American version of this was not silver; it was just black, and that's what I had on vinyl as a kid growing up. So, wonderful album. Now, 1972 is when Lee Kerslake joins on drums. Now you get the classic lineup, and of course, magnum opus, if you ask me, Demons and Wizards. The Wizard, great folky tune. Traveler in Time, venturing into a little bit more hard rock and heavier waters. Easy Living, which is the single off of this wonderful album, and you get now you have on bass here, I failed to mention Gary Fane, my favorite bass player in the band. So Easy Living, Poet's Justice, which I think is underrated. Circle of Hands is majestic and a wonderful Hammond organ. It's spiritual in a way. It's moving. Just amazing lyrics from Byron. Then you get Rainbow Demon, which is great as well. All My Life, perhaps the heaviest track on the album. And then you get Paradise and then The Spell. Sometimes it's combined. It's separate here, again, because this is a 2-disc version. They separate them on disc 1. But regardless, it has kind of a Meatloaf quality with the way the piano is in vibe with the rest of the song. It's very light, but yet fun and inviting and danceable. Right? It's just great. And it's got some a cappella from Byron, sort of with the strings in the background or the instruments. It's just, what a great album. And Roger Dean really selling it with the album artwork, front and back. Great album, magnum opus if you ask me. And I did a video a while back on, it was a series 24. I'm still looking for that 25th to make it an odd or an even, divisible by 5 kind of thing that, us humans do. But one of the greatest album pairs of all time are these two. They complement each other so well, and it's not just because of the album artwork, but you have things definitely cemented because Gary Fane is back on this album, and you have, again, like this album, the classic lineup that we know and love, and yet, despite the fact that you have bass and drummers rotating in and out of the band and things not being cemented until here, those first 3 albums are so wonderful. Nothing to sneeze at. So Magician's Birthday, Sunrise, majestic in its own right, moving, that slow build up at the beginning, and then it gets, the high range from Byron. Spider Woman, Blind Eye, Echoes in the Dark, I think is underrated. Rain is just a phenomenal ballad. Sweet Lorraine, of course, one of the hits off the album, along with Sunrise. Tales is quite good, and then the powerful, wonderful, epic The Magician's Birthday, Darkness versus Light, Good versus Evil, Byron playing the role of both the villain and the hero here. And then you get some wonderful bonus tracks here, like Crystal Ball and with Silver White Man. Just what a great album. Great album. So now that the band has cemented things, their third album, they move away from the Roger Dean artwork, but they get this sucker out. This is 1973. Both the previous 2 albums were 1972. And while not as good as the previous 2 albums, this is still one of my go-to top 5 Uriah Heep albums of all time. Dreamer, of course, the hit off this was Stealin'. When I was a kid, I thought Stealin' was a Grand Funk Railroad song because of the bass at the beginning. It sounds like Mel, but it's not. Of course, it's Gary. One Day is an underrated gem. The title track is a masterpiece. If I had the time, I would say is close to being a masterpiece. 7 stars, Nothing to Sneeze At. Really good song. Dare I say great. Circus is a very good song, as is Pilgrim. And then you get some bonus tracks here. For whatever reason, when I think of Uriah Heep, I also think of the band Sweet, although they're very different. Although both bands from the UK, is because when I'm a teenager, I am really trying my hardest to find all this stuff on vinyl that's out of print, or some of it's out of print. Anyway, especially this. So Sweet Freedom, 1973, wonderful album. And then there's a little bit of a falling off with this, and you could argue, I would argue these complement each other nicely, but I wouldn't consider them in my top 25 favorite album pairs of all time. Close, maybe, but anyway. So Wonderworld, people have negatively critiqued the album cover. I actually quite enjoy it. And then I love the, they're no longer made of stone here. Just being playful. Wonderworld, the title track, is great. A Shadow in the Wind, So Tired, The Easy Road, Something or Nothing. I Won't Mind gives me goosebumps. We Got We is a good song, not a great song. And then Dreams is fabulous. And then you have some wonderful bonus tracks. So, for whatever reason, as far as I know, when you talk about the first 5 albums, the debut, Salisbury, Look at Yourself, Demons and Wizards, and Uriah Heep. These all came out in 2017 on Sanctuary Records. I love Sanctuary Records for what they did with Uriah Heep. But when you get to everything, much of what comes after Magician's Birthday, you still have Sanctuary Records, but they don't release things on they don't make a 2C version for whatever reason. The ones I just showed you come later. These Sanctuary Records, this, and the ones I'm about to show you, are 2004. So they come way before these, but they don't have, I guess, just didn't have as much in the vault as you did with these first 5. So anyway, back to Wonderworld. I would say this album is short of being wonderful, pun intended, of course. I like it. It's very akin, intentional, and some have argued it's self-plagiarizing this. Well, I still love it. All right. Now, unfortunately, you only have 4 albums with the wonderful Gary Thane, Demons and Wizards, Magician, and then the 2 I just talked about because he passes away. Then you get this And I just got this in a few days ago to finally complete my collection of all the Sanctuary records that I want for the catalog. That's my favorite. And that's all I'm going to show you here today is my favorite run of the band, if you will. Although there's one in the run that's a little bit of a stinker. You know what I'm talking about, but we'll get there. So, Return to Fantasy, not the biggest fan of this album cover. It's not bad, but with the title, you would have wondered or hoped that they would have brought Roger Dean back for the artwork. But in addition to the album cover not being up to snuff with the album title or the moniker, the songs are not as good as what you get on Magician's Birthday, nor Demons and Wizards. And here you have John Wetton on bass, as he is for the next album. But as far as the album goes, it is a good album, not a great album. Again, this is bonus tracks. For me, these are all the definitive versions. And I'm not the first to say that because this is one of the, as far as re-releases or reissues with bonus tracks or extra discs, whatever you want to call it, reissues, let's say, these for me are the definitive because what I'm trying to say, these are the best or definitive because the extra tracks that you get are just marvelous. It makes everything fresh. It's like you're listening to things for the first time, even though you've heard it so many times before. So, Return to Fantasy, the title track, I love. Shady Lady and Devil's Daughter are good. Beautiful Dream is okay. Prima Donna is okay. Your Turn to Remember, I think, is an underrated gem. Showdown is okay. Why Did You Go, I love. And A Year or a Day, I love as well. You got some bonus tracks, as I said, which are just alternate demo versions. But you do have a song called Shout It Out and The Time Will Come, which are B-sides, and that's why you get this, because those two songs are really cool. All right. And of course, next you get High and Mighty. Unfortunately, this is the last album with Byron. He leaves. You still have John Wetton on bass, but he leaves after this. You have One Way or Another, Weep in Silence, which is the best track on this album. Misty Eyes, Midnight, Can't Keep a Good Band Down. It's just, Woman of the World, I think, is great. Footprints in the Snow is a little bit too soft for my taste. Can't Stop Singing is good. Make a Little Love, I could do without. And Confessions, I'm very fond of. But then when you get to the bonus tracks, Name of the Game and Sundown, or why you get this, because they're unreleased tracks. Then you have an extended version of Weep in Silence, which is even better, if you can imagine that, than the original track of number 2. And then you get demo versions of other things like Name of the Game, Does Anything Matter, I Close My Eyes, Take Care, and Can't Keep a Good Band Down. I think this is worth having. As panned as it was, and still is by many, this is a staple in the Uriah Heep catalog because there is some good here to have. And so that ends the Byron era. Then you get into the Lawton era, as I've spoken of recently, and 9 wonderful tracks. Hanging Tree, Been Away Too Long, Who Needs Me, Wise Man, Do You Know, Rolling On, Sympathy, Firefly. Of course, you also have Trevor Bolder on bass coming over from David Bowie in the Ziggy Stardust era, if you will. And Ken Hensley is still with the band, thank goodness. Let me pull this out. Yes, you still have Mick Box, of course, Ken Hensley, and Lee Kerslake, and the only change in the rhythm section is Trevor, and of course Lawton on vocals, as I said, and there he is, right there. Right there. Oops, that's Ken right there with the shades. And I think this is a wonderful album, as I've gone on record saying many times. Album artwork is wonderful as well. Something about wanting to just look at it over and over again. And I sometimes forget about the back cover, which is kind of interesting as well, which you can't see because of the glare. But I think this is a masterpiece of an album. Just a lot of Sympathy and Firefly. The first 3, everything's good. But the best are the first 3 songs. Hanging Tree, Been Away Too Long, Who Needs Me. You know what? I take that back. Everything on here is gold. It's wonderful. All right. And then there's a little falling off with this, but I think this is quite good, if not very good. Keep on riding, flying high, roller, free and easy, illusion, underrated, free me, great, cheat and lie, pretty great, the dance, and choices. And then you get bonus tracks as well. A lot to love here. And then my least favorite of the Lawton era is Fallen Angel, but of still a good album. Woman of the Night, Falling in Love, One More Night, Put Your Lovin' on Me, Come Back to Me, What'd You Say, Save It, Love or Nothing, I'm Alive, great song. Fallen Angel, really good song. And then you got some wonderful bonus tracks that didn't make it on the original album. So, that's the end of the Lawton era, Then you get, again, a change in direction. You get a new drummer, whose name always eludes me. Guy with short hair and a bandana. Of course, you get John Sloman from Lone Star. And let's see. Well, the reason he has short hair is because it looks like he's got a widow's peak. Chris Slade on percussion and drums, staccato drums, whatever that means. So, I don't know if he's gone to do other things or what his career is like, but so I've talked about Conquest recently in other videos. I won't, belabor the issue, but I will say, while this disrupts the goodness that is everything from the debut through and including Fallen Angel, this is worth having and it is the bonus track edition because of Love Stealer, Been Hurt, and Think It Over. So, and then you have 2 or 3 really good songs on the original version of those original 8. And then, of course, you have the comeback album, Abominog, change in direction again. We're far away out of Kansas, Toto. No Byron, no Hensley. You have Peter Golby on vocals coming over from Trapeze. He auditioned around the time of the Conquest album, but they went with Sloman instead. I get why. He was supposed to be the next best thing since Robert Plant. But Too Scared to Run, Chasing Shadows, On the Rebound, Hot Night in a Cold Town, Running All Night with a Lion, That's the Way That It Is, Prisoner, Hot Persuasion, Sell Your Soul, and Think It Over. And you have some wonderful bonus tracks like Son of a Bitch, Tin Soldier, and then alternate or live versions of what's already here on the album. But you have some light and shade here. You got some heavy stuff. The heaviest song is Sell Your Soul. You've got Too Scared to Run, which is pretty heavy. And then you've got some ballady goodness with That's the Way That It Is and Prisoner. And some poppy AOR foreigner type stuff with Chasing Shadows, On the Rebound, Hot Night in a Cold Town, Running All Night with a Lion, and Hot Persuasion. Golby sounding a bit like a passionate and just as passionate Lou Gramm from Foreigner. But it's not the Uriah Heep we knew and loved, but it does work. You have Sinclair on keys. You don't have Hensley, as I said. So the only remaining member of the band, actually you have 2. Let's see. Yeah, you have Kerslake on drums and Box on guitar, and everyone else is new because Sinclair's on keys, Bob Daisley on bass, and Golby, as I said, on vocals. So this is the best album run of Uriah Heep, if you ask me, even though Conquest kind of gets in the way of that run, but these are the best worth having. So let me talk a little bit about the Bernie Shaw era. I am not the biggest fan of Bernie Shaw, but the best part of that back half of the discography, if you will, in my humble opinion, is Wake the Sleeper, bit of a resurgence, kind of a comeback album, and Living the Dream. Those are the 2 best in that quite a few albums, right? But I'll say this, when Bernie Shaw began to revitalize the band after those first two Snoozer albums, things began to get a little better. Still not really my cup of tea until you get to Wake the Sleeper and Living the Dream. But where Bernie Shaw really fit in with the band was live. When they had those official bootleg, which they're all out of print now, official bootleg series coming in, a bunch of those. If I could track those down, it'd be great. They seem to go out of print like that. And I have a couple on MP3 that I downloaded. There's the one in Japan where Bernie sounds, and they do Demons and Wizards in its entirety. Bernie sounds like he's trying to do his best and succeeding at sounding like Byron. So I do have to throw some light Bernie Shaw's way, especially for that. So, folks, this is an end with respect to the band will be no more come late February, early March, give or take, because there are only 7 shows. But I had to do this video because Uriah Heep 1 is a band that's been on my mind, as you've seen in my videos recently, mostly talking about the John Lawton era and the John Sloman one and done album Conquest. But I had to do this video because I am such a passionate lover of this band. It's one of my favorite bands of all time, like I said. I get excited when I think of this band. I get excited when I want to come home. And gee, I really want to put, everything in this, even if it's the 3 or 4 songs I like on this or Conquest, I get excited about them. I'm so passionate about this band. I know I took a lot of crap for them in high school because my friends didn't like them. Get so excited wanting to listen to this, just any of these. And how many are there? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is 14 albums. This is their first 14 albums, and most of what's here is good and even better. And everything in between. Everything here is in between, with the exception of Conquest and High and Mighty, is good, through and including Masterpiece. And as far as Conquest goes and High and Mighty, there's still some good within the average that I would rate those albums. So that makes up for that. If that, that makes sense. I'm a little biased, I guess. So what a history, right? Been around for 50-something years. The legacy, even though, again, I'm not the biggest fan of Bernie Shaw, the legacy will continue. I hope that young people who like rock music, and they're not many because, times have changed, and I get that. I hope that they will pursue this band and take an interest, or at least, experiment with listening to them. And if there's a place to start, I would highly recommend you start with Demons and Wizards and Magician's Birthday, because that's where I started, and that's where most people start if they're new, because that's the biggest suggestion. And then I would go jump to the debut and the second album and the third album, and then do Sweet Freedom and Wonderworld, and then go from there, and then explore the Lawton era. So I can't talk enough about this band with Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Rush, and King Crimson, and Queen. Just wonderful band. There's just so many wonderful bands that I love. Again, Uriah Heep is in my favorite top 10 bands of all time, and rightfully so. What a great band. So Uriah Heep, fellas, those of you who are still in the band, those of you who have passed away, you're in here always. It's goodbye, but it's not goodbye, because I always have this wonderful music to get to listen to, and what a great history, as I said. What a great run. What a legacy. I know I keep saying that. I get a little choked up. So, fellas, thank you so much for the wonderful music. God bless. And God bless to all of y'all out there, everyone, Heapster or not a Heapster. Thank you so much for watching. Take care now. Bye.